Matcave Gaming here, and we're out of the cave for the last episode of my Resident Evil experiences. Now, before we get into Resident Evil 7, which is the most recent entry to the franchise, I wanted to go over quickly two honorable mentions. And those were Resident Evil Revelations and Revelations 2. These games actually are ones that, from what I understand, a lot of Resident Evil fans actually didn't play a bunch of, which I'm actually kind of surprised. And it may be because the first Revelations game originally came out on the Nintendo 3DS, specifically designed for that system and to use the functionality of that system with the two screens and the touchscreen and everything there. I didn't play it on the 3DS, but I did play it when they ported it to the PS3, and it was actually a really nice port. They upped the resolution and everything looked great. You could clearly see that this wasn't a game designed for the PS3. It was, it was clearly a port, but it played very well. And being that it was a side story entry, it's not a very long game at all. Both games are not really all that long because they're more of an extra bonus story to the franchise. But the nice thing is that you reprise the role of main characters. In the first Revelations, you play as Jill, and then for part of the game, you also play as Chris, which is nice. In the second game, you play as Claire Redfield, and you actually get to play as Barry Burton from the first game. So it's nice little entries that fall in between the main titles. Resident Evil Revelations is in between Resident Evil 4 and 5, and Revelations 2 takes place in between 5 and 6. So it just kind of fills in the gap between the main entries. But I figured I'd just mention those because they certainly are worth playing, especially for any Resident Evil fan. So, Resident Evil 7. This was a big release, and it also had fans rather nervous because this game was going into the first-person perspective. Now, we've seen that before in Resident Evil with Resident Evil Survivor. That game was not good. We talked about it a little bit before, and it really did not leave a good taste in fans' mouths. So, to hear that we're going back to first person after all these heavy action-oriented games, fans were clamoring to go back to the roots, go back to survival horror, and I think fans were almost expecting a new entry to go back to even just the fixed cameras, like the original 3. Actually, I should say the original 3 and then Code Veronica as well. But we got something different. Now, here's how I experienced it, the upcoming to the release. There was a game that happened, or a demo, I should say, that honestly wasn't anything to do with Resident Evil, but I sort of feel like it was inspired by it. It was very strange. Suddenly on the PS4, this free downloadable demo came out called PT. Now, at the time that came out, nobody really knew what that meant, but it was free, so a whole bunch of people tried it. It was this first-person view inside of a house, a really creepy house, and it just was incredibly creepy. This, bloody bag starts talking to you, and you start walking through this house and through the different hallways and checking doors, and you find out there's a ghost there, but there's all these strange things that are happening. The weirdest thing about PT was that you'd get to the end of the hall, go through the door at the end, and now you're back at the start. But every time you did this, every time you cycled through, something was different. Now, what this ended up being was PT stood for Playable Trailer. If you beat the trailer, you find out it was supposed to be for the new Silent Hill game. A survival horror game very similar to Resident Evil. It was out around the same time as the original entries, and a lot of fans of Resident Evil also played Silent Hill. When PT happened, and we saw the potential of that style, it was crazy. I mean, we were so excited for this entry, and then that game ended up getting canceled. But what happened shortly after is we got announced Resident Evil 7, and when we saw footage of this, it looked like PT. So now the way I experienced was I played PT, got really excited about that, and played it a bunch, trying to get all the different endings and everything with it, and I wanted more. Now I find out that Resident Evil 7 is going to be in that style, and the graphics look so similar and so creepy. It's like, oh my god, this is it. They're going to do this the right way. So now I wasn't too worried anymore. I was like, wow, they're really going to bring this back to survival horror and scares. And I was like, oh, I do miss the fixed cameras and everything and seeing your character, but you know what? Let's give this a shot. If it's anywhere near as good as even just PT was, we got a chance. And then the game came out with a demo, and I don't have the VR system. I don't have the virtual reality system in any form for the PC or the PS4. From what I understood, and I could honestly be wrong about this, but from what I understood, the demo in VR was different than the demo that you just played on the normal console. I believe. It's just based on footage that I saw, it looked different. I just remember it seeming to be different. But this demo starts you off. You have no idea who you are. You see this, like, guy tied to a chair, and then you're trying to help him, and somebody comes out of the shadows and kills him, and then you wake up off the floor, and just in small print comes up in the middle of the screen, escape from the house. Wow, okay, so that's your objective. You start searching around, and you realize there's a fuse box on the wall, so you're like, okay, very classic Resident Evil, I gotta find a fuse to power up whatever this is for. And you start searching around the house, but a lot of creepy things start happening. Now, there weren't any zombies in this demo, but along the way you come across what ends up being one of the main villains in the real game. Is called the Molded. They like kind of look like black tar, like these strange looking, like globby looking creatures, and they're disgusting looking and terrifying. And you do come across one of them depending on how you play this trailer. There were multiple endings and multiple ways to go through, so it could end quickly, it could end, you know, after a long play. You know, it depends on how well you do with it. But the feel is definitely very tense. You are definitely trying to survive. But it wasn't survival horror like Resident Evil, not yet. This demo was more like a ghost story. And even if you keep an eye out, there is a ghost in this demo. That, like, there's a moment where if you happen to get there at the right moment and look at the stairs going upstairs to the attic, there's this ghost girl on the stairs, and then she suddenly vanishes, and she'll pop up in multiple areas. Now, from what I read from the developers, this demo wasn't supposed to be what the actual game is. It was supposed to set the tone of the game. Now, the area in the demo is actually in the game, in the real game, but it's a little different. But it's still there. But it's not a ghost when you get to the real game. This game, the demo just set the tone that this is back to horror. This is about to fear and suspense and trying to survive. So overall, it was a very good demo, and it set the tone. A few months later, we get the release of the actual game, and the game starts with this cryptic video message you get. You find out you're playing as a character named Ethan, so a character we've never seen before in any of the other franchise, and that's pretty much how this game works, is we're brand new characters. You get a message from his wife, who it looked like she was, away on a vacation, or actually I think she was doing something for work, and she was away from home and telling him how much she misses him. But then it switches over to her warning him not to come find her, and warning him to stay away. And you're like, wow, what the hell is that? Then we move on to the main opening of the game, and you find out Ethan received the message from his wife. His wife's name is Mia. And he's on the phone with a friend saying, I got a message from Mia, she's alive, and she's, I'm going to go find her. And that's basically what sets up the game. You head out to this house down south, and that's where she's supposed to be. And you get there, and right off the bat, you're in the woods, and there's some creepy things coming up. There's just artwork made out of chainsaw blades, and there's dead animals hung places. There's crows around that will suddenly fly out at you to give you a good jump scare. And you're just trying to work your way quickly to the house. And when you do, now you're in kind of familiar territory from what we saw in the demo. And just this disgusting house. It's all broken down. The kitchen is just awful. There's a pot full of what I guess used to be food, but now it's full of bugs and maggots, and it's just, oh man, it's just disgusting. But the graphic level is insane. You're on the edge of your seat right away. You have no idea what's going to come at you. And being that we've never seen these characters before, and we don't know what we're getting into, so if you've never played the game before, I highly recommend picking up and reading any file, any newspaper clipping, any picture that you come across. Look at it, read it, because this is going to start to build the story around why you're there and what happened here. This is about the Baker family. The Baker family ended up being part of experiments that were with whatever other company is out there now. It's not Umbrella anymore. There's another company doing all this, bio research and just creating monsters and creating that molded creature that we saw in the demo. But we find out that the Baker family is certainly infected because they are out of their minds. Now, when you first meet them, it's hard to, you don't know what their deal is. Maybe they're just this crazy hick family that's just out of their mind and disgusting. But, there's a point where Jack Baker, the father, cuts off his son's arm, and his son is just kind of like almost showing it off. And later in the game, you see he's got 2 arms again, so they're clearly regenerated. This family is terrifying, especially Jack. Jack is one of the first members of the family that you have to deal with. And depending on the difficulty level that you set the game to, that kind of sets the tone of how aggressive he's going to be towards you. If you play on easy, he'll give you a brief moment to try to get away from him, but the harder the level you go, he's just persistent in coming at you. And you start with nothing. You have nothing to work with. I mean, it's just, you're in a state of searching every last bit of this house, trying to find anything you could possibly use. And that's what made the game so perfect for the Resident Evil franchise. That's what brought it back. You were looking for tools to survive. And that's really what was missing from the entries before this one. Between 4, 5, and 6, you really didn't feel that same pressure. You felt that if you just kept pushing forward, you're just going to make it to the end no matter what. But in this one, you didn't have that sense of that you're going to just accomplish what you need to do with little effort. This was, if I don't find something, and you don't even know what that something is, you're just desperate to find anything to put in your inventory that you might be able to use. The game brought back themed keys. So there's a key that's about the shape of a crow. There's one of a snake. It's just the idea, kind of how like in part 2, they were like the spade key, the heart key, the club key. And then the first game had the knight key and things like that. Like these were themes to it. And this game brought it back. So the developers and the writers of the story, the creators of the game, really put so much effort into part 7, and they clearly listened to fan feedback and what fans wanted to happen with this game, and to bring back the roots of survival horror. But at the same time, the developers couldn't just go and just rehash what was already done and make a game that's the same exact way as the originals. They had to take a chance and do something new with it. And to find that balance between doing something new but also making it familiar, that's a tough thing to do. And in my personal opinion, I think they accomplished this and then some. I played through Resident Evil 7 multiple times. I pushed my way through to unlock a lot of the trophies and the accomplishments. I was able to unlock infinite ammo, which is returning to the game. You unlock different things that build up your defense. And there's even an item called X-ray glasses that just lets you see where items are as you go through the game. So that's kind of fun for the additional playthroughs, so that you're not like searching the whole time if you just want to push through for the sake of story, which is something I love to do on multiple playthroughs. After I've beaten the game and gotten through everything and I just want to kind of run through to experience it again, that's a cool tool to have on there. Between that and the infinite ammo, it just makes it a lot of fun. But this game accomplished what most fans doubted they could do. So this was such a huge, pleasant surprise. The story is so creepy, and when you finally find out what happened and how this actually links to the rest of the series, because look, if you've never played the game, to be honest, you're not going to really get the link back to the other games till pretty much the climax of the game, the end of the game. That's where you get the major link. There are little hints. Like, it's kind of cool in one of the rooms when you first get in the house, there's a newspaper article written by the reporter you can play as in Resident Evil Outbreak. And then there's a book written by one of the guys from the BSAA that's in Resident Evil Revelations. So there's nice little tie-ins to the characters. There's even along the way a newspaper article talking about the anniversary of the destruction of Raccoon City. That one, oh man, that one, what a cool one to find, but wow, how bittersweet that is, man. Just to look at that, and it's like, it's such a cool little reference, but at the same time, it's like, oh man, that's kind of depressing. But there are the little links throughout the game. But for the most part, you're dealing with brand new characters, so you don't know what to expect from them. Several boss battles throughout the game. You basically work your way through the Baker family. Now, there is a very important character that is in this family that is helping you through the game. Her name is Zoe, I'm sorry. Her name is Zoe. And she even gets a side story after you beat the game. There's some DLC and everything with it, but there is another playthrough, another campaign you can do where it's about Zoe. Not only the lead up and the intro to the game, but there's also, you find out what happens with her after the game. The biggest surprise with the game and the biggest link is that the game does bring Chris Redfield back into the franchise. They bring him in, and there is a DLC called Not a Hero, and you play as Chris Redfield, which it picks up right where the main story leaves off. So it's really cool that once you have that and you beat the game, you could jump right into that and just keep going to get a true ending to it. It's so much to this game, so much to find. I've been through the game so many times at this point now that I'm pretty sure I found everything and I've unlocked everything. And even at that point of unlocking everything, I still go back and replay this one. This one was so much fun. It really brought back the core elements of Resident Evil, and it was what every fan, I think, truly wanted from this. Wanted something new, but they also wanted familiar, and Capcom and the developers of Resident Evil accomplished this. So if you haven't played Resident Evil 7 yet, I highly recommend it. I even bought the game twice. I got it on the PC to play it on Steam because I just wanted to get it even further into a higher resolution. I have a PS4, but I don't have a PS4 Pro, so playing it on Steam was really the only way I could up the graphics and get it into that 60 frames per second and play in the higher resolution, which it was awesome. And it was just fun and kind of a novelty to do that. I bought it while it was on sale to do that, but that's how good the game is, that I was willing to buy the game twice just to experience it in a slightly different way. So that's pretty much my experience with the Resident Evil franchise. I kind of grew up with the franchise from day one when that original game came out, and my cousin brought his PlayStation over and showed me that game. The way I play games has never been the same. It's that changed the way I think about playing a game. It changed the style of games that I lean towards. I purposely look for puzzle games because of that game. So I don't know if, I may have come across it either way, but Resident Evil opened the doorway for things for me to be interested in. Like, I'll give you an example. The game Portal and Portal 2, has nothing to do with Resident Evil, and it's certainly in no way survival horror, but solving puzzles, that element, that's what drew me to it. There's a more recent game called The Witness, all about solving mazes and puzzles like that, and I absolutely loved it because it gave me that feeling that I got from Resident Evil and accomplishing the missions in that. So this is something that if you've never played any of these entries, what I would recommend is start from part 1. That's how I experienced it, and I feel like I had the best experience because of that. You go through the development, you go through the evolution of the game, and that's how I was able to get better and better with each entry, because I knew how to play from before. So then all I was really picking up were the little differences, the little tweaks to the controls and things like that. So that's my personal recommendation, is if you've never played Resident Evil, or maybe only played a little bit of it, or even just seen someone else playing it, and you have any interest at all experiencing this, start from part 1. Don't even go all the way back to PS1. Play the HD remaster of part 1, the one that originally came out on GameCube, and now it's been ported to the next gen system, so there's plenty of opportunities to play that. It ties in and develops the story even better than the original release did, so I'd say start with that one and then work your way up chronologically and just play in order, because that way to play the game and open up the story, it's just so fulfilling, and I promise you're going to have a wonderful experience with that game. I really appreciate anyone who's taken the time to check out these videos and share in the experience I had with this franchise. It's one of my most beloved franchises that I've ever played in video gaming history, and probably will always be the best one for me. And if you guys want to see more from Matcave Gaming, hit that like button, subscribe, and down in the comments, let me know what you think about your experiences with Resident Evil. How did you start playing? Where did you first play it? What system did you use? And which one is your favorite? But I'll see you guys next time on Matcave Gaming, and we'll pick another franchise to go through and see how we experienced it.